afternoon, everyone, and hello to everyone who's listening via Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. So, hello, we will discuss now what happened in the month of June. Okay, so we understand that today is June 29. There's still one day tomorrow, but definitely in terms of reasons why the market went up this month, it's still intact. So let's discuss that, right? So before anything else, let's discuss the outline. So I will summarize for you what happened in the month of June, and then what to watch out for specifically in the month of July, and then we will reiterate our long-term picks, and then I will mention two traders playbook picks for you guys. Okay, so let's summarize what happened in the month of June. So actually, as in June 2021, with one day left, so the PSA actually went up by 328 points in this month alone, or that's 4.9%, to close at 6,956.65. And we're now finished with the first half of the year, and the PSEI is only down by 183 points, or that's just down by 2.6%. Okay, so keep in mind, we were down by as low as 13%, if I'm not mistaken, right? And now we're back up near the 7,000 levels. So what made the market trade higher in the month of June? So there are actually several reasons, and number one is, if I may choose, is the expectations of a higher paced vaccine rollout after the government disclosed that it expects 38 million vaccine doses to arrive in this country this month until August 2021. In addition, there was also news that Pfizer, right? The country signed a supply agreement with Pfizer for the delivery of 40 million vaccine doses starting in August. So that's nice because we have 38 million until August, and then we have Pfizer delivering 40 million more after that. Besides that, investors also cheered the Congress passage of the 401 billion biennial 3 pandemic relief package. And then we also saw economic data improve. So besides trade data, there's also this manufacturing PMI, which improved to 49.9 last May. So although if we dig in deeper, it's still a contraction because above 50 signs expansion. Nevertheless, if you compare it to April, which is just 49.0, there are signs of a bit of recovery after. Keep in mind that last March, di ba? Last March, nag-lockdown tayo a bit. So operating conditions now are inching towards stabilization since nag-resume ulit yung businesses. So what dragged the market? So actually, if you recall, there was one day that we reached 7,000 levels already, but the market hesitated at that time. Why? Because some members of the U.S. Federal Open Market Committee, so it's part of the U.S. Central Bank, brought forward the rate hike timeline from 2024 to 2023. So actually, that's a special segment of this wrap-up. So we will discuss how does higher interest rates affect equities. So just a recap for those who are probably young or probably new to the market, new to the basics of economics. So let me discuss it a bit for you. So let's discuss first the first bullet. Okay. So interest rate changes do not directly affect the stock market. However, central bank actions can have trickle-down effects. So in some cases, that could impact stock prices. So when the central bank raises interest rates, banks increase the rates for consumer loans. So in theory, this means there's less money available for consumer spending. Then also, there's also increased rates for business loans that can sometimes cause companies to halt expansion and hire. So since 'di ba mas mataas na yung loan rate, mas lalaki yung interest ng companies. I mean yung interest that the companies will pay, right? So of course they have less money for other stuff in their operations. So of course, in theory, if there's less hire, there's less consumer spending, there's less business spending. That could lower the company's stock, right? Although times are changing and there's no guarantee that the rate hike will negatively impact stocks. So typically, rising interest rates occur during periods of economic strength, right? So right now, we're seeing economic rebound. So in this scenario, increased rates often coincide with the bull market, right? right? So that's what we're experiencing, not necessarily here yet, but in the US. So in terms of who outperforms more in a higher interest rate environment or approaching higher interest rate environment, it's usually the banks and financial institutions because they're the ones that increase their rates, diba? So higher interest rates allows them for bigger margins, more profits on loans and financial transactions. There's also a trend that during a higher interest rate environment, investors tend to outperform when they look at value stocks compared to pure growth stocks, right? So that's just in theory. Nevertheless, we hope this provides guidance on why the market initially reacted negatively on that one. So to summarize, right, when interest rates rise, so bond prices fall, potential stock market losses, higher interest rates on savings accounts, certificates of deposits, commodity prices fall, and mortgage rates rise. Okay, so that's the basic of it. Now going back to the market. In terms of technical analysis, you will really see there how after a strong rally, the market slowly further increased or appreciated, right? And if we were to talk about what happened last week, right? After taking a much needed breather, the PSA rebounded with the 6,750 level acting as a support. So when the market rebounded, or when the market pulled back after that interest rate news, the market did pull back. But last week, the market rebounded further confirming that 6,750 is a support. So should the market rebound in the next days or next weeks, 7,200 you make the next resistance. Okay, so if you're for example, if you're buying FM ETF, you should take a look at the PSCI. If you're a more conservative, you can begin buying once it goes back to 6,750. Or if you're a trend follower, if you want to further accumulate, if the market breaks above 7,000 convincingly and closes above 7,000, that's a good time to add on to the market. So if you're a short term naman, if you're just short term in trade may market for some reason, right? You could set your cut loss below 6,600. Okay? Kitang-kita dyan yung support and resistances, right? Okay. So this is the monthly chart of the PSEI. So right now, nag-higher low na siya. We're hoping for another, I'm referring to the post-COVID breakdown. So kita nyo nag-higher high na siya. I'm looking for those listening to the podcast. I'm referring to the monthly chart of the PSEI, and if you take a look at it, after the COVID-19 price breakdown, nagkaroon na ng lower high yung PSEI. So we're hoping for a higher high, and that would happen if the market breaks above 7.4, 7.5, right? So what do we watch out for in the month of July? Lots of things, especially globally. But on the local front, the government already announced that at least in the NCR and Bulacan area, we're still under GCQ with some restrictions. And we're also seeing Davao, other cities have heightened restriction. So that's something to watch out for in the next weeks, the next month, especially if magkakaroon ng signs of easing and the like. In terms of economic data, that's where the bulk of what we watch out for. So besides the manufacturing data on July 1, something I added in the Philippines in terms of something to watch out for is business and consumer expectation survey. If you observed or if you watched our Traders Playbook event early this year, we highlighted the improvement in business and consumer expectations. And of course, meron kang slight downward pressure after the lockdown last March. So we're hoping for some improvement once the data comes out in July 2. And then again, there's inflation on July 6 or remittances on July 15. For the US, there's a jobs report on Friday. Of course, investors will look for signals. If masyado strong yung jobs report, that could imply price pressure, wage pressure. So that could impact inflation expectations moving forward. And then there's the inflation data itself on July 13. And then merong interest rate decisions US on July 29. Definitely something to watch out for in terms of the language And then globally, there's manufacturing data on July 1, and then there's interest rate decision in EU and Japan in the latter part of this month. And then again, we continue to watch out for the arrival of more vaccines in the Philippines. COVID-19 vaccine-related news, right? That the arrival of more vaccines in the country was the main reason why the market went up in the month of June. So that's why if we see more developments on that front, definitely the market could sustain its rally. And then global inflation, news on global inflation. That's why we continue to mention yung mga data to watch out for globally, especially inflation and inflation related data, because that could impact sentiment here in the Philippines, especially if there's no other news locally. So in terms of stock picks, so just to reiterate, we continue to like in property, um, the consumer discretionary, and the banks, right? We prefer the reopening place, and that has outperformed in the month of June, right? We've been presenting these stock picks for a while. It hasn't moved um, for most of the year, but you saw it move for the month of June, right? So we are now here to reiterate why we continue to like them, especially we're seeing some of those names after a sharp rally. They're now pulling back a bit on to their support levels. That's why it's good to take advantage, because this is a time to further accumulate them, especially if you got left out in the initial rally. So who are they? Right? So Ayala Land, our current target price for Ayala Land is 52. All right. Actually, we changed this. It's already 51. Okay. Our target price for Ayala Land is now 51. So we continue to like the stock for its exposure into the residential segment. So just to reiterate, um, Ayala Land's residential business accounted for 65% of its pre-pandemic operating income. So if there's a reopening play, it's definitely Ayala Land. And then next is SM Prime Holdings. Again, our current target price for SM Prime Holdings is now 42, taking into consideration the first quarter earnings. Nevertheless, it's still a buy for us. At current price of 37, you still have more than 10% upside for that one. And it's because we like what we're seeing in terms of trend for the reservation sales of SM Prime, in terms of how it's rebounding and moving forward with more with the vaccination rollout really ongoing really well. Pag nag-reopen na yung mga malls, di ba, SM Prime Holdings is poised to benefit from that. Next is Robinson's Land. So our target price for RLC is now 26, right? So I have to um, adjust this slide. Nevertheless, our current target price now is 26, and we continue to like RLC because of its timely recognition of its earnings contribution from its project in China. So it's poised to contribute more this year. Hence, we expect the earnings of RLC to exceed 2019 levels, and something that is that scenario is unique um, compared to other companies. We also like consumer discretionary, right? Why? Because with the further easing of restrictions, there's pent-up demand, so that should boost store foot traffic, same store still sales growth of food services, discretionary retailers, and alcohol beverage volumes. That's why we continue to like San Miguel Food and Beverage. So this stock has really outperformed in the month of June, especially in the past trading days, right? And why? So quarantine measures are further lifted, as at least here in NCR in Bulacan. With news of vaccine procurement, we expect social gatherings and nightlife activities to resume sooner rather than later. So keep in mind, the main cash cow of San Miguel Food and Beverage is the San Miguel Brewery business. So if there's signs of tourism, we're seeing our friends in social media already going into out of town, beach, right? So that should bode well, since they're likely to consume alcohol beverage, right? So our target price for San Miguel Food and Beverage is 93, right? So congratulations to those who were patient in holding FB and are now making profits. For RHI, again, no, so if si FB yung somewhat tulog, right, for the past months, the RHI is still lagging. Nevertheless, if this could be the next consumer discretionary company that could rally. So something to watch out for, right? So si RHI, we continue to like RHI because it's definitely a reopening play kasi most of its segments are exposed to malls. So definitely once we see significant reopening sa malls, RHI will definitely outperform. So that's something to put on your watch list, or even if you're a long-term investor, you could already accumulate, right? And if you take a look at the quality of the company, yung balance sheet niya remains healthy, right? Despite its exposure to malls. So it has a huge cash position, specifically 12.5 billion as of end September. So I would like to add a couple of stocks. I mentioned this last month, but this is not technically a consumer discretionary play. This is not even our top pick. But I added this because if you want something to add to your portfolio as a hedge, given the, syempre, if your stocks are, if your portfolio is poorly opening, right, you're exposed to this segment. But if you want something of a hedge, you can buy Century Pacific Food. So that's CNPF. This is not technically a reopening play. This is more of a COVID play. Technically because, 'di ba, yung products that it sells are essential, right? Si Argentina corned beef, 555, Century Tuna, Birch Tree, right? And moving forward, despite that, CNPF is moving ahead with its new business expansion plan. So, meron siyang higher capacity sa tuna manufacturing plants. So, besides that, we really expect the stock, the company, especially its earnings, to grow more than what management thinks, right? So our target price for CNPF is 26.3. So there's still upside for that one. And definitely, if you take a look at the price action, it's definitely one of your outperformers. Pure Gold, our target price for that one is still 55. It's more of a valuation play, right? More of a valuation play. We believe after it got deleted or removed from the MSCI basket, it really got sold down significantly. Although it rebounded already, it's still cheap in our view. So you could still buy the stock at attractive levels. Currently at attractive levels, especially it's still, there's still a huge upside compared to our target price of 55, right? So this could, again, CNPF and Pure Gold could be your hedge, right? So this deserves some allocation to your portfolio, but significantly smaller compared to our top picks, the reopening winners. So lastly, financials, right? Of course, especially we're seeing the rollout of vaccines already. So you're seeing businesses already strategizing their expansion plans, some already expanding as we speak. So borrowing appetite is expected to pick up pace, right? And keep in mind, we're part of the Metrobank group, so we cannot recommend Metrobank upfront. Nevertheless, we have a research partner in Singapore, that's DBS, Development Bank of Singapore, and they are the ones covering Metrobank. And their target price for the company 67 pesos. And they almost have the same thesis on why we like these banks. So for example, BDO, our target price is 162. Technically, credit quality concerns ease. Um, there's also prospects for faster return on equity recovery. So right now at BDO, at currently I believe it's at 114 or 115. There's still a huge upside to our target price, especially with the signing of the CREATE law. Corporate tax will be lower, hence earnings per share grow, and earnings per share growth is expected to increase further. So it's the same case with BPI, which is our next pick. Our target price is still 105 pesos. It's the same. It's the same thesis with BDO. For BPI lang, yung mga loans are exposed to real estate, and we're positive on the recovery of the real estate sector, right? So hence we like BPI. So of course, our top pick is still SM, and SM has been outperforming compared to the index in terms of year to date, in terms of what's driving the index rally for the past trading days, despite some pulling back, the SM market. So it's because it's really a good it's a reopening play, but it's also a good hedge given its relatively limited volatility compared to the other index names. So again, in terms of why we like SM, it's because it owns the top property, retail, and banking companies, which are still, and again, your reopening winners, or your reopening sectors. So there. Just to show you our target price. So dito updated na yung target price of Ali, S&P, and RLC. So you can see here the upside. So for those listening on Spotify, Apple, or Google, or we're showing here our top picks. The share price as of June 29, the target price and the upside. And just to mention, for SM, the upside is 23%, Ayala Land 41%, SMPH 11%, RLC 49%, for FB 13%, RHI 55%, BDO 40%, and BPI 18%. So those are your upside to our stock pick. So definitely all of them still double digits, still room. There's still room to accumulate. If you want to take a look at our model port, if market cap weighted ka, positive ka na for the year, right? So it's mainly driven because of SM. So down lang siya ng 3%. Si BDO is up by the banks are actually up by nearly double digit na this year. So PSI is down by 2.6%. If you take a look at the market cap weighted, up na ng 0.6%. If equal weighted, that means if you bought these stocks equally, so down ka na lang ng 1.7%, still outperforming the index. Okay. So now, looking at our traders playbook pick, so this is the chance. So luckily for those watching and listening, I'm here to further elaborate on a couple of our traders playbook picks. So first one, this just got published on last week. So this is more of a technical play, right? So this is Macro Asia. And Macro Asia, although it has gone up a bit, there's really a huge upside, especially if it goes above 6 or 6.20. According to Recognia, which is our automated pattern recognition platform, if Macro Asia breaks above 6 or 6.20, there's really a huge upside. At least could reach 7 to 7.30 pesos, according to Recognia. And if you take a look at the fundamental aspect of the fundamental perspective of the business, the management of Macro Asia is venturing also to non-airline related businesses, so like water, telecommunications business via radio trunking. So it's expanding to move away from the airline maintenance business na medyo volatile or medyo sensitive to economic cycles, right? So that should bode well for Macro Asia in the long term. In terms of price action, which is the main thesis of the report, a break above 620 is really a good signal for Macro Asia. So that is something to put on your watch list, especially if it breaks above 6.20. So I'm showing here in this slide the chart from Recognia, right? So if you want to take a look at it further, you can visit our platform. So next is Converge. So Converge, right, is one of your outperformers here to date. And probably you guys are asking if it's already expensive. Although it's relatively expensive, there's still a huge upside for this company, especially if you take a look at earnings, it's double, sometimes triple digit pa, right? And for us, the business model is attractive and leveraged to many positive themes. So first one is Converge is well placed to benefit from emerging themes such as work from home, e-learning, home entertainment. And then it has stable recurring revenue given the long-term nature of customer contacts. There's high margins as a result of fixed cost leverage and strong cash flow generation on higher utilization of its fiber assets. And keep in mind, according to our source, in 2020, only 18% of Philippine households have access to fixed broadband internet. So with Converge focusing on the local fixed high-speed broadband market, Converge is poised to catalyze fiber broadband penetration in the country, right? And keep in mind, if you take a look at the market share in Converge, yung market share niya as of 2020 sa fixed broadband market has grown further to 22.9%. So 2019, 12.7% lang yan. And noong 2018, 6.8%. So there's really huge growth for the stock. If you take a look at price action, you can accumulate on pullbacks until 21.45, right? And then just ride the uptrend. So for this one, this is our trader's playbook um, buy calls. So you you can really see here yung huge performance in the month of June. Since the market really rallied, a lot of our traders playbook reports that hit its profit-taking level. So congratulations to those who followed our traders playbook report. So year to date, 71% na po yung hit ratio niya. So the start of the year, diba, we kept mentioning here in the monthly wrap-up na una na 40% pa lang siya, and then gradually increasing to 50%, right? So now it's 71%, including our sell calls, which we will discuss in the next slide. But just for the listeners, besides the 71% hit ratio, if you average all of those profit and the losses the start of the year, 6.2% yung average compared to PSEI down by 2.6%. So significantly outperforming. So besides the buy calls, right? So besides the buy calls, the sell calls have also done well year to date. So ito yung mga sell calls nung volatile or downward trending pa yung market. So we actually also took advantage of that. So we hope you guys stayed away from these stocks. So there, so the hit ratio year to date of traders playbook in the first half of the year is 71%. So congratulations again to those who followed. So this is the time we answer your question. First one, about FB's target price of 93, what is the timeline? So actually, it's usually within 12 months. So I believe we released the report a month or a couple of months ago. So 12 months from that one. So there, FB, 93 pesos. And then the next question is, there's actually a lot of question for this one. Is there any insight on the stock rights offering of tech? So for Surtech, well, there are a lot of companies there that are still yet to that they're poised to outperform given the reopening. And right now, the semiconductor industry, although there some are benefiting from the shortage, some are not. So if you want to allocate some of your portfolio to Certec, I suggest na very small allocation lang and take advantage of those reopening winners that are yet to further rally, right? Kasi keep in mind the purpose of the stock rights offering of Certec is to pay debt, right? So that it's fine. But again, there's still lots of companies there that are poised to further outperform. So I suggest you allocate there instead. Allocate your portfolio higher in the opening winners. Okay. So, okay. Next question is, do we have a forecast of the PICI by end 2021? So actually, we mentioned this in our Traders Playbook event early this year. It's around 8.4. Although if it seems like it's far-fetched right now, but the main purpose of the 8.4 call now is to tell you guys that the market still has a huge upside. If it does not reach 8.4 by the end of the year, it still means that there's still upside in the market. So there. It's just that the 8.4 medyo na-delay lang siya na onte because diba nag-lockdown ulit last March, right? So nevertheless, the recovery is still intact. It's just a matter of when. Nevertheless, the recovery of the PSCI is still on its way. It's just still a matter of when. But what it means is just continue to hold on to the opening winners there. Okay, it's a good question. So the question is, he was able to sell some of his stocks and he wants to buy again. What factors can cause a pullback to 6.7 or below? I think what I've mentioned in the what to watch out for is global inflation. So that could be one thing. Another is if the Delta variant further spreads. Kasi right now sa Philippines wala pang local transmission ng Delta variant. All of the 17 cases of the Delta variant here in the Philippines is mostly from foreign travelers. So if we have a local community transmission of the Delta variant and it spreads significantly, that could result to the market going down to the support level and even lower, right? So there. Okay, another good question. So is this a good time to accumulate on media stocks, GMA 7 and ABS? Okay, so and another question is if expensive na si GMA 7. Well, for GMA 7, I can't say it's expensive. It's more expensive now compared to months ago, but there's really a huge catalyst, especially in elections ahead. Especially, 'di ba, like there's probably limited election, physical face-to-face elections, and they will really make use of the media, the TV, and the social media. So there's really upside for that one, especially for GMA 7 specifically, 'di ba? May chance na yung mga candidates will focus on campaigning using GMA 7 because the ABS because of the current headwinds. Nevertheless, ABS is also poised to benefit from that one. It's just that GMA 7 really has the leadership at the moment. So if you have GMA 7, probably you could take profits, but probably not even 50%. Parang very small take profit lang and then allocate it to the other opening winners that could also benefit from election spending, di ba? So that could be a strategy. That's a good strategy. And if this is your first time buying GMA 7, you can accumulate on pullbacks, 'di ba? Accumulate lang on pullbacks. Kasi ngayon nagni-new high pa siya eh. So accumulate lang on every time it pulls back. So there. Oh, again, this is a good question. Pre-pandemic, what was the usual value turnover in PSE? Um, I think I just have to say na lang yung peak average value turnover in the PSE at one point was 8 to 8.5 billion pesos in a day. Right? I believe that was yung before yung Trump trade war 'di ba? Doon nag-dry up yung liquidity talaga. But prior to that one is around 8 to 8.5 billion. So right now we're reaching that in some days, but the average right now is just around, at least what I know, the 6-month value turnover is around 7 billion right now. So it's increasing, but not pre-pandemic yet. There. Okay, another good question. So, paano po si Vita? Di ba po halos same sector sila ni FP na related sa poultry? For FB kasi, that's only one segment of theirs, right? As I've mentioned earlier, FB has San Miguel Brewery, di ba? So, yun yung cash cow eh. Yun yung cash cow. So, yun yung magdadala sa kanya. So, there. Okay, good question. So stocks that will benefit during election season aside from media. Well, that's your restaurants, your consumer, 'di ba usually kung yung mga pinamimigay sa mga taong bayan, those types of companies, but you have to handpick because some consumer restaurant stocks right now are relatively expensive already. So you have to pinpoint those who are uh, who have not yet fully recovered, the So sina Max's Pizza have not yet gone up significantly yet. Oh, they have gone up, but ano pa sila, relatively cheaper. Okay, for Tech, the question is what's with the bonus warrant? So it's actually free of charge. If you take a look at our daily report earlier, and if you take a look at the PSE Edge disclosure, once you avail ng stock rights offering, they will give a free detachable warrants. I believe it's at the same price, so it's free of charge. So that gives the buyers of the stock rights offer some incentive to hold on to more. Certec. And warrants have this nature kasi na not that volatile in terms of price action. So that could be your incentive. So, but again, as mentioned, there's still a lot of stocks out there that are poised to further outperform. So we recommend you guys to focus on that. At least at the bulk of your portfolio should be focused on reopening plays. Okay, so for GMA7 kasi, for GMA7, the follow-up question is it going up until 2023 election time? Well, the election time is 2022, May. Kaya nauuna na ngayon, nauuna na siya umakyat ngayon. But after that, expect the stock to pull back. So you have to strategize already as early as now. So there. For SPC, it's a good dividend play. But again, right now kasi yung dividend play dapat lower allocation lang yan ng portfolio and focus on the reopening winners. Still, there's still a lot of money to be made sa reopening winners. So focus on that. For SPC though, it's a company that has provided at least for in the short term some high yield, high dividend yield, right? So you could allocate on that one, but very small lang. Okay, the question here is we used to have a monthly calendar where corporate financials are going to be released. We still post that sa daily reports, right? It's just that for the month of June and May, wala namang corporate. Oh, for the month of June, wala namang corporate earnings. Magsa-start siya by the end of July. So you could see that at our daily report on Thursday, yung calendar. Okay, so which stocks are potential candidates for PSA rebalancing and what would be a good strategy to employ in trading these stocks? Well, I have to evaluate yet which stocks are poised to be added. Usually actually, it's a good question because usually nag-add around August talaga. So for the PSA, if there's a candidate, I'm not so sure yet, but if there's a candidate, something to watch out for is AC Energy, right? For Converge, hindi pa siya pwede because Converge has to be new. For you to be listed sa PSCI, kailangan listed ka ng at least 1 year. So, si Converge not yet a candidate. Probably si AC Energy na yung nearest. Siya na yung possible. But we have to further evaluate yet. So, that's not certain. But since your question is potential candidates, AC Energy is the answer. In terms of which sectors are lagging year to date, it's the property sector. Property sector naglalag. That's why, 'di ba, especially once mag-reopen yung economy, dun talaga may upside. So there. So what else? Oh yeah. For Monday naman, a lot of you have asked for Monday. I believe nag-new all-time high siya earlier. It touched new all-time high at 16.08. Although, if you take a look at the price action, meron na siyang RSI after trading for a month now. So technically overbought siya. But Mondays, don't mistake it for naiiwasan, right? For Monday, actually, if you're a long-term investor, definitely you should buy a bit now and then buy more when it pulls back, if it pulls back, right? And the next support I'm looking at for Monday is around 15.13, 14.7. Nevertheless, you could accumulate already right now. Probably if you want to allocate around 25 to 50% right now of your planned buying sa Monday, you could go ahead and then buy or use the 50 to 75% of your allocation sa Monday when it pulls back, right? Because you have to expand your horizon on Monday because you're not only looking at the local business, you're also buying the growth of the meat alternative segment, which is already profitable and already selling in other countries. If you compare it, for example, si corn, yung competitor niya sina Beyond Meat, etc. Si Beyond Meat, I believe it's not that profitable yet. Si corn already profitable, already exposed in Australia, and poised to further expand in the US. So that's what you're buying from Monday. It's the growth of the meat alternative segment. And why you're holding it while waiting for the meat alternative segments to grow, you're holding it for the stability of the domestic business and the significant market leadership. Isipin nyo, puro number one yung products ni Monday. So, yeah. Actually, si Monday could be a beneficiary also. The local business could be a beneficiary also sa election. Diba? Yung mga giveaways and stuff. So, there. Well, yeah. Yeah. Sabi daw, malakas cement-related stock pag election kasi maraming project mga politiko. Well, that's yeah, possible. Hopefully ano no, hopefully if mag-reopen further yung economy, more projects should be implemented as well. So it really coincides with the reopening rin naman talaga of the economy. So that's a good point rin. The next question is, should we avoid stocks with a lot of net foreign selling? Um, not necessarily. At the end of the day, you should really look at the fundamentals pa rin ng business, because sometimes a stock may net foreign selling. It's just probably a preference of some foreign investors. But if you take a look at the fundamentals, diba, nag-grow naman yung earnings, nag-rebound, may mga positive news. Because for example, one example na mabigat yung foreign selling, si Ayala Land, right? Ba't alaki ng inakyat niya from as low as 31, di ba? Ngayon, nasa 36, it even reached 30.95. So, more than 20% pa rin yun from its lows. So, you should take a look at more of the story of the company. And if you're long term, you should not necessarily look at net foreign selling. Although net foreign selling is good to take a look at if trader ka, but if investor ka, not necessarily. Actually, net foreign selling, kahit trader ka, hindi rin siya masyado indicator rin. But nevertheless, look at the story pa rin. So should we worry about the ghost month? Well, in terms of the ghost month kasi, here's one strategy for ghost month. So if you're really looking to bargain hunt, I think ghost month is a good way to do it, because dun dried up yung liquidity, because diba, nag-vacation, that's where the time the fund managers take a vacation, because most of their clients, which are probably Chinese, are also avoiding heavy investments or huge chunk of investments, right? But if investor ka, for example, if nagko-correct lang yung market, usually kasi pag ghost month, although hindi umakit yung market, hindi rin siya gaano bumababa, right? There's not that much activity, there's not that much liquidity. If you're a trader, of course, if you're looking to buy on breakout, that's probably where the problem comes in. Diba? If magbabuy ka on breakout, tapos wala rin masyadong liquidity, diba? Hindi siya confirmed breakout. But if you're an investor, this is the time to actually take advantage of when the stock probably corrects, diba? Dun ka mag-scoop up habang hindi, kasi especially if in the next months, sa bear months, if may tendency umakit yung prices, tapos probably yun na yung election, yun na yung, baka may mga campaign na at that time or something. So, baka dun na mag-akyatan ulit yung mga price at fast pace, di ba? So, if you're an investor, it's good to pick up stocks when there's not that much activity. So, that's the ghost month. So, that's one way to look at it. Di ba? So, there. So, the question is, how do you access daily report of First Metro? So, yeah, you if you have a FirstMetroSec account, you go to the research tab. Then may kita mo na dun yung mga iba-ibang daily reports. Iba-ibang reports, right? Okay, so question is, how about ICT? Well, for ICT, this is actually one of the stocks na relatively expensive na compared to other index names. This has been a huge outperform. We actually created a trader's playbook for this one, hitting our profit-taking level and yet further rallying from that. For ICT, keep in mind, if you look at ICT, you go beyond local. You see global trade already improving, di ba, as we speak. Kasi especially mga some countries, nag-reopen naman na talaga eh. So si ICT benefits from the global exposure, yung ano niya, diversity sa business. But if you take a look at valuations, what's telling me is limited na yung upside ni ICT. Nevertheless, a good investment. Especially if it pulls back. But at current levels, probably limited na yung upside. So, there. For GSMI, it's the same case with FBs. It's the same thesis with FB na reopening winner siya, especially, 'di ba? Especially pag once mag-reopen, once vaccinated na yung mga tropa sa sari-sari store, 'di ba? Bibili na ng Hinebra. And the earnings, as the question said, is you're correct, 'di ba? Yung okay yung earnings niya, nagdo-double yung earnings niya, right? Just watch out na lang for the price because it has significantly gone up already. You buy on pullbacks, you buy on support levels. Okay. So there. So just stay watchful na lang, especially if dumating bigla yung Delta variant, diba? So just stay watchful of the market daily as you can. Okay. For for all HC naman, that you mentioned ICT, and then another question is all HC. All HC is see all HC good breakout, right? Good breakout, and all HC is relatively younger, relatively smaller company. So it's poised to benefit from, especially if mag-invest further yung Ayala Group sa kanya. So good to hold lang, good to hold si All HC. And if you're a trader or if you're an investor who hasn't accumulated yet, you buy on support. Okay. Okay, so last two questions. So first one is the MPI undervalued now. Is MPI and San Miguel undervalued now? For MPI, yes, it's still undervalued. MPI is still undervalued. For San Miguel Corp, well, for SMC, I wouldn't say it's undervalued. It's fairly valued. Until the Petron Corp business improves. So, yun kasi nagda-drag sa earnings si San Miguel Corp eh. That's why we're recommending si FB instead para expose ka to this segment that is growing its earnings well. Okay. So last question. Okay, so mining sector. So for the mining sector, you have to be picky. And this is where you separate now yourself if you are an investor or trader. Because if trader ka, you have to watch out for the commodity price. Because as mentioned earlier, di ba, yung commodity prices usually fall when there are higher rates. Di ba? So that commodity prices, that's nickel, palladium, copper, and the like. And the commodity prices have really gone up rin naman talaga year to date. So it's really poised to pull back. So if you're an investor, I think the good pick pa rin for the long term is still the nickel related sector. Si coal okay rin. Ako lang kasi if you're really super long term, like for 10 years, si coal is not that poised to outperform, right? But here in the Philippines, for example, sa Semirara, meron kang upside from the economic reopening, right? But you should look to unload that, especially if the renewable energy now dominates the country, but right now not yet. So may upside ka pa a bit from Semirara. But if you're really looking at it now and long term, si nickel yung good bet. Ano ka lang, watch out lang for the volatility in the short term since the commodity prices are volatile right now. So there. So thank you for those who asked their questions. So just to wrap up this monthly wrap up. So I would like to show you our recent episode sa podcast namin. We invited si Dr. Peña Reyes. So he is actually a professor in Ateneo. So we talked about the health of the economy. Right. So he shared a lot of info, what he thinks about the current state of the economy. So please listen to that one. And then for those who are first time listeners here in the wrap up, so our podcast is actually ranked top business podcast last August. And then at one point we were number 21 in the trending podcast in the country last March 1. So we have around 44 episodes already. So you can listen to all of those. Ano pa rin naman yung mga earlier podcast kasi namin are talks about the concepts in the stock market like SRO, etc. We even talked about Manila Water before it went up significantly right now. So there. So that's all for me. So I'm Royce Aguilar, I'm part of the equity research team. So if you have any questions, just email us. Take a look at our daily reports, our weekly reports, our traders playbook reports for more guidance. So that's it. So thank you. And as always with First Metro Securities, it's hashtag your future first. Thank you.
Bye.